I'm going to stop right there. Let me just go ahead and break this down. Zbigniew Brzezinski is one of the top global strategists in the modern New World Order global corporate era, where nation states transferred their power to a multinational unelected corporate banking combine. Brzezinski worked with David Rockefeller and others, and he pushed and postulated a stratagem that was part of the British model of what they know as the Great Game to use divide and conquer. He died yesterday at 89. Now, let me go over what the grand chessboard is. In chess, you believe you want to control the center of the table. So he was only bringing in the kind of Cecil Rhodes global corporate government model, but he believed Muslims, he's been pushing this since the 50s, and been arguing it to the Rockefeller Foundation and others, and they adopted his plan, would be the absolute key. And he argued that the Nazis had successfully used the Muslims in the Middle East for power and control in World War II. He obviously argued that the British intelligence had set up Saudi Arabia to control the region in 1901 with Lawrence of Arabia. And he wrote white papers on this, and he republished a bunch of them in the late 1990s under the title The Grand Chessboard by Zbigniew Brzezinski. So this is his words, not mine. And he explains, the center of the chessboard in the world is between Africa, Asia, Eurasia, East Asia, India, and all the way out in the Pacific, because the majority population, even in the Eastern Pacific, is Muslim, if you're not counting Japan and China. Okay? So from Eastern Europe all the way through the underbelly of Russia, formerly the Soviet Union, the majority population is Muslim. The fiery crescent here. Okay? Now, if you control the center of the board, you control Russia, you control Europe, you control Africa, you control all these key sea lanes, you control all the way out with Indonesia down to the Philippines, where you see the Islamists taking over today. Now, you then piggyback on that, the David Rockefeller plan, with China to use it as the economic power, give them the Panama Canal, give them 90+% of rare earth mineral control. They will become the economic powerhouse. Then the Western elites can make deals with the communist generals to move via tariffs and trade, domestic tariffs against their own people, to China, leverage out and control global trade, but to balance the power so that China wouldn't be too powerful, only the United States and NATO are allowed to have a global military force. China can only be in its own area and is not supposed to expand outside its territorial borders. This is, and what's crazy is they all write books, they have C-SPAN events, they admit it's the plan, they run the whole show. I sit here and tell you this. People go, there ain't no such thing as a book. He ain't read no book say that. Jones be conspiracy theory and racist. I don't like him very much. Ooh. I mean, it's beyond Forrest Gump. I'm telling you the admitted plan. This is not my opinion. Brzezinski said 5 years ago, we'll play the clip in the next segment, he said, look, it's a lot easier just to kill everybody now. We're not going to be able to propagandize because of the internet. It's time to just kill people. He said it used to be cheaper to propagandize 1 million people than it was to kill them. Now it's cheaper just to kill them. And this is a guy that helped Pol Pot murder everybody. So he wrote that in a book, one of his books, bragging how he helped put Pol Pot in. He goes, I did not kill them. We had Pol Pot kill them, but I did assist him. Everybody wearing glasses. Bye-bye. Oh, but then later we fought Pol Pot. See, they wind up the enemy and then they destroy it. So this is pure psychopath, Machiavellian, beyond Machiavellian, end justifies the means stuff, okay? It's one of the real black marks on Jimmy Carter. This is his. You wonder why Jimmy Carter likes the Muslims and always says great things about them? Because that's the shadow army, folks. Again, the National Security Advisor has written 4 books I've read admitting this. The latest, Forget the name of it. I just scanned over it. I didn't fully read it. We heard another one a couple years ago. Here you go. Grand chessboard, like 1999. Look it up. So here's the center of the board. What's in the center of Asia, of Russia, of Europe, of Africa, and then the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea? What's in the middle of the chessboard? The Middle East. And all the Islamicists. In fact, they occupy the entire center of the board. They'll do whatever they're told by their imams. They're controlled. You manipulate them. They will attack Russia. They will attack Europe. Then you can take the rights of people in Europe. You can say ban free speech to be compliant with the Muslims. You can have the Muslims attack here, set up a police state in America as well. Same thing in England. You could use Islamic jihad armies to come in and destabilize Africa. Then the West has an excuse to invade Africa, to be the good cop fighting them. This is the grand chessboard. This is the program. This is the plan. But they think you're stupid. Just like Gruber said, thank God you're so dumb. Thank God you have no memory. Well, you're not dumb. And it's the message that creates the outcome. We have to have complex messages to understand the complex situation. So, between China and Islam and the Anglo-Americans, they're supposed to carve up the entire world, cutting out the wealthy Western peoples and cutting Russia out for the super elites and totally enslaving the third world. We'll break it all down straight ahead. All right, so what we're looking at is the admitted battle plan by Zbigniew Brzezinski. You can read his book free online, The Grand Chessboard by Zbigniew Brzezinski. He died yesterday. And if you're asking, how do they control the Muslims? Well, Saudi Arabia sits at the crossroads of the caravans. And British intelligence created it starting between 1901 and 1933. The Saudi Arabians have taken over much of the Middle East. They've been driven out of some of those areas since, like Syria and Lebanon. So they've carved them into these kingdoms. Then they just so happened, of course, to discover all the oil that was there as well. So they've made tens of trillions, to be conservative, off of that. So British intelligence, U.S. intelligence, and others already had deals with Saudi Arabia to basically not get the blame for jihadist attacks that would then be blamed on Iraq, Syria, and other countries that were actually anti-Sunni Wahhabist. But Brzezinski's also credited with making secret deals that they claim they got discredited for. No, it was all a setup. That's been partially declassified, for setting up the Islamic Republic of Iran. So the Islamic Republic of Iran was also set up under Zbigniew Brzezinski, because he didn't just want the Muslims to be out of control. He wanted them at loggerheads with each other. So that's strategic tension. So he's using them against the West. He's using them against Russia. He's using them against Africa. He's using them in their control over into Asia. All Islamic through here. They used to have all their big slave boats and slave ships going out and colonizing and selling slaves and kidnapping women all the way through here. That's why this is all Muslim out here as well. And today they're attacking the Philippines as we speak and mass murdering and slaughtering. It's all loving. It's the religion of peace. So all that's going on. So because Islam is centered in the middle, you use it against free societies, you use it against Africa, and it's all directed out of Saudi Arabia. So then you ask yourself, what's Trump all about? Well, Trump goes and says, I know you're running the terror. You got to stop it now. And Saudi Arabia says, yes, we are. We were wrong. We misled the West. We're going to stop now. And the next day there's a terror attack. What does that say? There's different factions in Saudi Arabia working with globalists that want to continue this whole Islamic reign of terror. Trump has openly said he wants an American century where the United States actually, through free market, free trade, and ideas, dominates the globe, not a system where Islam's allowed to take over much of the planet and where Islam's allowed to basically come in and take over Europe and allied with the globalist and the socialist basically as their new enforcer. And our own military are the ones that don't want to go along with this plan. Now that our own military in the last decade started reading the Grand Chessboard, reading the Council on Foreign Relations publications that source the chessboard and actually admit that this is their plan and that this is their operation. So if you're a new listener, you have to understand Brzezinski's plan, like a Russian doll, fits into the larger globalist cosmology. So we're not completely following the Brzezinski plan. Brzezinski has had major input on the whole divide and conquer globalist strategy. And Zbigniew Brzezinski is now dead. What does that mean? Well, really not a lot, because his program will just continue on. But what listeners need to understand is, I did not just give you my opinion. That's what's so frustrating about this. The lack of knowledge in the public is what allows this to get worse and worse. It is a fact that every president for over 100 years has had